Hey everybody, and welcome back to another top 10 episode here on Every Day is a Story All Its Own. I'm sure you've been working hard on the audition tips and the advanced audition tips that we went over in the last couple of episodes, and I thought we'd have some fun. And today I'm going to talk about the top 10 books that I love that are written by actors. So are you ready to have some fun, learn some things about the industry, and see actors as the best storytellers they can be with the written word? Welcome back to another top 10 episode of Every Day is a Story All Its Own. I'm really ready to have some fun with this. It's going to move kind of quickly, shouldn't be a very long episode, and I'm going to talk about some books that I really love that are written by actors. And we all know that actors are consummate storytellers. So let's get started. The first book is probably the best-selling, most popular, and maybe most honest tell-all books about Hollywood ever, and it's The Kid Stays in the Picture by actor turned producer and head of Paramount Studios during its heyday, Robert Evans. Now, this book was recommended to me by a close friend, probably about a year ago, and since that time I also read the follow-up, the sequel. But The Kid Stays in the Picture has been a series, it's been a film, a documentary, and Robert Evans just tells it like it is. This is a guy who came up from nothing to make millions, lose millions, make them again. He had a massive stroke that they didn't think he would recover from, and he did. And it was all because of his love for life and his love for movies. So he's the man behind The Godfather, Marathon Man, Chinatown, just to name a few. He was very, very close friends with Jack Nicholson and Warren Beatty. Those are some great stories. He dated everyone in Hollywood who was a beautiful woman, and internationally. Sometimes he made it his mission to woo them. Very, very interesting guy. You can learn a lot about what the industry was like in the 1970s and the 1980s. Really, really good, fun information in here. And again, if you like it, then The Fat Lady Sang is the follow-up. Now, the next book on the list is much more serious. It's by English actor, Shakespearean veteran, John Gielgud, and it's called An Actor and His Times. This book is wonderful on how classic technique gets applied, how he made his transition from the stage to the screen. So it's very informative in that way. Has a lot of important things about, he talks about at one point about how important the voice and the body are, which we've been talking a lot here on for the audition episodes. And he went to foreign countries where they didn't even speak English, and they were still moved to tears by the pieces that they presented because of the body language, because of the rhythm and intent in the voice. So a very, very interesting book as far as that goes. Now, the next one is wonderful. It's by a man with a terrific sense of humor, Richard E. Grant, and it's called The Film Diaries of Richard E. Grant with Nails, which is a play on words, of course, of one of his earliest and best known movies, Withnail and I. So anyway, he keeps no holds barred, but it's all done tongue in cheek. Two highlights of it, I think, are Dracula, where we learn about Francis Ford Coppola and his crazy, idiosyncratic ways that he did things, directing through a bullhorn in his Silverfish trailer, having the cast get together for Dracula and read the entire book cover to cover, no skips, in a sitting. Some other things that he did that were really quirky, and also Hudson Hawk, which is a big film that was kind of a disaster. It starred Bruce Willis. It has a terrific story in it about Danny Aiello, who was all upset that his hair was messed up after his character gets blown up, and he really threw a fit and wanted his hair to be perfect. Even the guy just got exploded. So it's kind of weird. There's some great stories about going to a club where Madonna was playing. Very, very interesting book. Great sense of humor. Great about learning, hey, sometimes even when we're established, we don't get the role we think we're going to get, or we think that the movie's going to be a good idea and suddenly it isn't. It applies to any kind of project that we're doing creatively. So let's move on. The next one is from Steve Martin. Now, Steve Martin is someone that Richard E. Grant talks about, again, very tongue-in-cheek in his book. But Steve Martin's book that I really love is called pure drivel. It's essays from a guy who is a consummate actor, a magician, a banjo player, a playwright, a screenwriter, a man who's done it all, immensely talented. And these are his quirky essays, his philosophies of life in his own Steve Martin way. Terrific book. And then after that is a book that's similar in a lot of ways, but from a very different kind of personality, and that's Woody Allen's Side Effects. Again, Woody Allen is a guy who can act, of course, very well known as a director and a screenwriter for films like Annie Hall. And really, this is just a fun trip with some fun short stories. It ends with a play that features Abraham Lincoln at the end, who he says it may or may not be true, but I thought of it, and so I thought I would write it. So a really, really fun read from an immensely talented man in Hollywood. Next book is from another guy who's very quirky. You'll see that is definitely a theme on this list. And it's the first book by Russell Brand, which is called My Bookie Wook. I kind of had to look at my notes there. My Bookie Wook. And that kind of tells you everything you need to know. Now, I happen to love Russell Brand. I think he's a modern trickster. I think he's a philosopher. I think that the work he does bringing attention to addiction and better ways to treat addiction than to criminalize it or to ostracize addiction and addicts is a wonderful contribution to the world. I've watched his vlogs where he talks about politics. I've watched all of his stand-up, including his most recent where he talks about becoming a father in ways that only Russell Brand can. But anyway, this first book, and he's written several, and I've read them all. But anyway, in this first book, he really talks about coming up and the chances they took and the people they upset and the lines they crossed to try to make art that really said something, that was groundbreaking and different and that held people's attention. So let's move on to another actor that I really, really love. And you may not agree with his politics or the way that he lived his life either, but I'm talking about Errol Flynn and, of course, My Wicked, Wicked Ways. Now, there are some interesting biographies out there. The Two Lives of Errol Flynn is one of them, where you can sort of compare what Flynn tells us compared to, what you might call the truth. But we all know that there are three sides to every story, and that's your side, my side, and the truth. So it would fall somewhere in between. But Errol Flynn talks very creatively about the battles that he had with directors, with studio producers, how he bristled when he was given bad material, made lives difficult for people. He also talks very honestly about his addictions, his problems, the darker side of his life, his taste for younger girls, which got him into a lot of trouble. But also, too, it talks about craft, and it talks about his approach to the work. His early life is very interesting as far as how he became the man that he became, who actually died fairly tragically at the end of his life. Premature, worn out by drugs, alcohol, wore out his heart, worn down by the bad decisions he made and the ways that they haunted him. So again, this is probably the biggest cautionary tale on my list. Now let's go to Jane Lynch's book. Jane Lynch's book is Happy Accidents. I absolutely love this book. If you're just getting started in the industry, if you're maybe thinking of giving up in the industry, this is really a book that you need to read. Jane is super, super honest about mistakes she made, chances she took that maybe she shouldn't have, things that she said no to that she should have said yes to. She goes through her career, her improvisation, her comedy training, films and television shows that didn't work out, and the things that she learned from them, surprise hits, the phone calls she got that she said, wow, I really must have made it because now I'm doing this thing for this great person. This is really a book in the tough times, or just to keep inspired, to keep motivated. To read Jane Lynch's book, Happy Accidents, is really to make us proud to be creatives and figure out some really great ways to do it based on Jane's experiences. Now, the last book is pretty wonderful because it's about The Princess Bride, and it's by Carrie Elways, and it was written for the 25th anniversary, and of course it is called As You Wish. Now, this book has some great behind-the-scenes stories. This was a movie that took 13 years from when a first screenplay by William Goldman was written until it was actually produced. It was kind of infamous in Hollywood as being a film that was impossible to make because of the book, because of the demands, the needs, how beloved the book was. But Rob Reiner did it. He put together a terrific cast. They've become iconic. Wallace Shawn's character is absolutely funny. And you'll see in the book that every day Wallace Shawn would say, well, this is the day that I'm probably going to get fired. I know I didn't do a good job, and I'm sorry, and I tried my best, and I'm really sorry. And so in his own very quirky way, if you know anything about Wallace Shawn at all, and certainly through this movie as Fazzini, really, really spectacular. It gives you a lot of insight into the casting process, from original interview to reading sides to actually getting the job, to wonder if you're going to get the job. So all very important there. Terrific anecdotes. He talks to all the different people who are involved with the film, who have continued to support it over the years. He talks about the tremendous fan following. This is a great book to read. As you know, William Goldman recently passed away. It's a great book to revisit his work. And I also encourage you, sort of as a bonus 11th book, to read William Goldman's The Princess Bride. The book is just brilliant and makes you appreciate the movie even more. Another thing that Cary Elwes talks about in the book is the preparation and the execution of the famous sword fight with Mandy Patinkin, of course, which just goes on and on forever, and they were so worried about it, and they worked so incredibly hard. It really is a glimpse into how those kind of things come together, and at the end of the day, an actor with great concentration and focus who can use his or her body really well can make great, memorable things happen and help the director achieve this great goal, which in the book it says it is the greatest sword fight of all time. So that was the mission that they were given, and they executed very well. So like I said, this was kind of a short, fun one this time. Top 10 books written by actors. I'm sure you'll enjoy them. Go ahead and check some of them out. They're all available on Amazon and other places where books are sold online. At your local bookstore, you can check them out of the library. Yes, libraries still do exist, and they're extremely important to us still as a culture, as a society. So I want to thank you all for continuing to watch. The comments have been great. The communications I've been getting are wonderful. We have some great interviews coming up. We're going to tackle historical education. So if you're liking these videos, please go ahead and click the little like button. Go ahead and subscribe, hit the bell. And remember, as we mentioned last time, we do have a Patreon page. This is an opportunity to support 7 Stories Theater Company to help us continue to make these videos, to keep upgrading our equipment and our software so we can do more things. Also, too, it will help you if you'd like, at certain levels in the Patreon contributions, you can work with me personally, either through email on written things, or you can work with me on Skype or another video platform on your acting, your directing, general mentoring, staying inspired, focused, historical education. Like I said, I'm going to be playing Che Guevara later this year. I'm excited to share that whole journey with you. So everyone, take care, read some of these books, have a good laugh, learn something about the craft in a fun way, and we'll see you next time on Every Day is a Story All Its Own.